Good afternoon. ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କୁ ନମସ୍କାର। ଶୁଭ ଅପରାହ୍ନ। ଜୟ ଶ୍ରୀ ଜଗନ୍ନାଥ। ନୀଳାଦ୍ରୌ ଶଙ୍ଖ मध्ये ଶତଦଳ କମଳେ ରତ୍ନସିଂହାସନସ୍ଥଂ ସର୍ବାଳଙ୍କାରଯୁକ୍ତଂ ନବଘନ ରୁଚିରଂ ସଂଯୁକ୍ତଂ ଚାଗ୍ରଦେନ ଭଦ୍ରାୟ ବାମଭାगे रथचरणयुतं ब्रह्मरुद्रेन्द्र सेव्यं देवानां सारमेशं सुजनपरिवृतं ब्रह्मदारु नमामि। परम कारुणिक अनंत कोटि ब्रह्मांडर मौडमणि कोटि कोटि ओडियांकर हृदयर आराध्य देवता समग्र विश्व चराचर षष्ठ परमानंद सचिदानंद अखिल रसघन विग्रह विश्व वेदनार वैद्य देवादिदेव श्री श्री जगन्नाथंकर चरण कमल तले कोटि कोटि प्रणिपात। Respected Principal Dr. Nalini Prabha Mahapatra, President of this webinar, respected Head of the Department Dr. Vivekananda Das, Reader in Economics, Maharshi College of Natural Law, esteemed Chief Speaker Mr. Anugrah Narayana Das, Senior Joint Controller General of Defence Accounts, Government of India, Ministry of Defence, Additional Financial Advisor, and the Nodal Officer of Corona Cell. Respected Mrs. Sadhanjali Swai, Reader in Economics, Professor J.K. Pradhan, Reader in English and Head of the Department English, Maharshi College of Natural Law. Respected viewers, join the domain, students, Maharshi College and others, other leaders of all other colleges, and all the members of electronic and print media, respected viewers from neighboring states like Jharkhand, Bihar, West Bengal, UP, Maharashtra, J&K, Andhra Pradesh, and Telangana. I, Dr. Amita Patnaik, being the convener of this 66th National Webinar, welcome all of you to this Google board. I welcome from the core of my heart. I offer also my humble submission to Mr. A.N. Das, the Senior Joint Controller General of Defence Accounts, Government of India, for accepting our request and encouraging us with his virtual presence from New Delhi with a short notice. I'm really grateful to you, Mr. Das. I welcome our chief speaker of this afternoon from the core of my heart, Mr. A.N. Das. And as all of you know, the main attraction of today's webinar, Mr. Das. He is an extraordinary, outstanding, genius student. As a versatile scholar, his contribution to the society shall ever be remembered. I welcome to Mr. Anugrah Narayan Das on behalf of our principal, Maharshi College of Natural Law, on behalf of Head of the Department of Economics, Maharshi College of Natural Law, Dr. Vivekananda Das, and on behalf of all the viewers and my dear students of this Google board. Let's welcome our guest speaker virtually. Now I request Rishta Patra, one of our third year economics honor student, to sing the welcome song. Over to Rishta.
ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କୁ ମୋର ପ୍ରଣାମ। ଜୟ ଜଗନ୍ନାଥ। ମୁଁ ଆଜି ଗୋଟେ ଜଗନ୍ନାଥଙ୍କ ଭଜନ ଗାଇବାକୁ ଯାଉଛି। ଶହେଟି ଗଙ୍ଗାର ମିଳନ ଯେଉଁଠି ନରେନ୍ଦ୍ର ପୋଖରୀ ସିଏ ଶହେ ଶଙ୍ଖ ଚକ୍ର ହଜିଛି ଯେଉଁଠି ଶଙ୍ଖ କ୍ଷେତ୍ର ପୁରୀ ସିଏ ଶହେ ସରଗର ଦେବତା ଯେଉଁଠି ଶହେ ସରଗର ଦେବତା ଯେଉଁଠି ମୋ ଜଗନ୍ନାଥ ପରାସେ ମୋ ଜଗନ୍ନାଥ ପରାସେ ବିହନରୁ ଧାନ ହୁଏ ଧାନରୁ ଚାଉଳ ହୁଏ ସେ ଚାଉଳ ଶ୍ରୀମନ୍ଦିରେ ଶ୍ରୀ ମହାପ୍ରସାଦ ହୁଏ ବିହନରୁ ଧାନ ହୁଏ ଧାନରୁ ଚାଉଳ ହୁଏ ସେ ଚାଉଳ ଶ୍ରୀମନ୍ଦିରେ ଶ୍ରୀ ମହାପ୍ରସାଦ ହୁଏ ଅକ୍ଷରରୁ ବ୍ରହ୍ମ ହୁଏ ଜଗନ୍ନାଥ ନାମ ହୁଏ ସେ ନାମକୁ ଗାଇ ଦେଲେ ଜୀବ ଧନ୍ୟ ହୋଇଯାଏ ଶହେ ବୈକୁଣ୍ଠର କରତା ଯେଉଁଠି ଶହେ ବୈକୁଣ୍ଠର କରତା ଯେଉଁଠି ମୋ ଜଗନ୍ନାଥ ପରାସେ ମୋ ଜଗନ୍ନାଥ ପରାସେ ମଣିଷ ଜନମ ହୁଏ ହେଲେ ସେ କରମ ଦିଏ ସେ କରମ ନେଇ ଦିନେ ବାହୁଡ଼ି ଯିବାକୁ ହୁଏ ମଣିଷ ଜନମ ହୁଏ ହେଲେ ସେ କରମ ଦିଏ ସେ କରମ ନେଇ ଦିନେ ବାହୁଡ଼ି ଯିବାକୁ ହୁଏ ବିନ୍ଦୁ ପ୍ରାଣ ଛାଡ଼ି ଯାଏ ଆତ୍ମା ସାରି ଉଡ଼ି ଯାଏ ସେଇ ସାରି ଯାଇ ଦିନେ ତା ଚରଣେ ଲୀନ ହୁଏ ଶହେ ଜନମର ବିଧାତା ଯେଉଁଠି ଶହେ ଜନମର ବିଧାତା ଯେଉଁଠି ମୋ ଜଗନ୍ନାଥ ପରାସେ ମୋ ଜଗନ୍ନାଥ ପରାସେ ଶହେଟି ଗଙ୍ଗାର ମିଳନ ଯେଉଁଠି ନରେନ୍ଦ୍ର ପୋଖରୀ ସିଏ ଶହେ ଶଙ୍ଖ ଚକ୍ର ହଜିଛି ଯେଉଁଠି ଶଙ୍ଖ କ୍ଷେତ୍ର ପୁରୀ ସିଏ ଶହେ ସରଗର ଦେବତା ଯେଉଁଠି ଶହେ ସରଗର ଦେବତା ଯେଉଁଠି ମୋ ଜଗନ୍ନାଥ ପରାସେ ମୋ ଜଗନ୍ନାଥ ପରାସେ ମୋ ଜଗନ୍ନାଥ ପରାସେ ଧନ୍ୟବାଦ।
Thank you, Rishta. Thank you very much. Now it's time to introduce our guest of this afternoon. It's my proud privilege to introduce one of my childhood friends, who is not only a jewel of Orissa, but also good administrator of India. He is none other than Anugrah Narayan Das, the son of this child, Mr. Ananta Narayan Das, is the father of Mr. Anugrah Narayan Das, who is also one of the Indian Administrative Service uh, administrator, senior administrator, who is no more nowadays, but he is a good administrator of Orissa State. And it's my proud privilege to introduce our guest of this afternoon, Mr. Das, who is the Senior Joint Controller General of Defense Accounts. He was Indian Defense Accounts, joined the Indian Account Service, Defense Account Service in the year 1991. Having so many education, I needed have to explain all this because he is a very good student and very versatile student. Having MPhil in economics and MBA in public policy, master thesis on efficiency of internal finance divisions in Government of India, and holding different appointments during his service tenure. I would just like to reveal only few of them. Joint Secretary and Additional FA, Ministry of Defense, Joint Controller General of Defense Account, Internal Audit, Principal Controller of Defense Account at current Central Command, Lucknow, Controller of Finance and Accounts, Ordnance Factory, Kanpur, Principal Controller of Defense Account, Air Force, Dehradun, Director Finance Ministry of Water Resources, and having so many experience since last 30 years. Financial advisor for procurement proposals, internal audit and oversight mechanism, budget formulation, budgetary allocation, expenditure monitoring, financial accounting and procure management, policy related to procurement producers and delegation of financial power. He has also attended so many training programs. Now I want to just request Sir to be with us on the virtual program. He has attended Advanced Mid-Career Training Program in Finance at Duke University, USA, USA, International Center for Promotion of Enterprises, Slovenia MBA in Public Policy, National Productivity Council, Japan, completed lead auditor course for taking up ISO 9000 certificate and certified as lead auditor by CII, Administrative Staff College, Hyderabad, Procurement Management and Financial Management of World Bank aided project, Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, Financial and Management in Defense, ICWA New Delhi, Cost Accounting Methods. All this is very, very small thing for him. But I'd like to say only one thing, that he is very sincere, very dedicated, and to honest to the point, like his father and mother. So on this auspicious day, sir, once again, I welcome you to this Google board. Now it's time to request my HOD, head of the department, Dr. Vivekananda Das, sir, the reader in economics, to address, propose his keynote address, sir. Over to Vivek, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. Respected Minister, Mr. Anugrah Narayan Das, colleagues of my department, Mrs. Sandhanali Swai and Dr. Namita Patnaik, all the dignitaries, my teacher friends, and dear students. Today's national webinar, Public Finance Management for COVID-19, is intended to discuss the role of public authorities in managing COVID-19. We are aware that COVID-19 has taken the world by complete surprise. It has left an indelible mark on living memory of the world. In India, the second wave was more dangerous, which took more than 3.5 lakh lives, in which about 80% comprised of people in the age group 45 and above. The pandemic has created dual crisis by affecting health and economy. About 230 million Indians are pushed below poverty line. Lockdown and other measures taken to counter the pandemic have disrupted economic activities to a large extent. The government of the country have been struggling to meet immediate need in providing public health and safety through creation of health infrastructures, minimum food support to BPL families, income support to those families who have lost their jobs, etc. Because of sharp increase in financial pressure, the government budget has come under severe strain, both in demand and supply sides. It is mainly due to rising expenditure, lower collection of tax and other revenues, provision of tax moratorium, etc. Stimulation of economic recovery process in right direction has become an added responsibility of the government. All these have demonstrated the importance of public finance management as a part of fiscal management policy of our country. In view of this, we have organized this webinar and invited Mr. Das, a specialist in public policy making, to present his views regarding management of public finance activities to counter the pandemic and restore the economy in right track. I hope his deliberation will help us to know different aspects of public economics and its management. I, on behalf of myself and behalf of the Department of Economics, other departments of the college, dignitaries present in the webinar, welcome Mr. Das and request to carry forward the session. Thank you. Jai Jagannath. Namita, unmute.
Sure. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. The purpose of today's webinar, as you all well known from the speech of our Vivek sir, it is to reflect on the competency in the management of government with a focus on the management of public finance. Mute Karuchi. It will also reflect on the role of public finance management in addressing the impact of the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. So competent bureaucrats and sound finance are the key drivers of an effective PFM system that enables and encourages decisions leading to high standard of financial performance and position. COVID-19 pandemic has taken root in nearby every country on the globe, upending personal and economic lives. 6 months into the crisis, some countries have managed to control new cases, while in others, the spread remains rampant. While many countries reopen their economies, allowing a courteous return to work, play, and economic life. The pandemic seems likely to remain a fact of life for the foreseeable future. So, in this juncture of time, let's listen from our guest of this afternoon, Mr. Anugrah Narayan Das. Now the floor is with you, sir. Over to Mr. Anugrah Narayan Das.
Thank you, Namita.
Yes.
I am audible.
Yes, sir.
Respected principal, respected head of the department, at the beginning of the session, I must place my thanks for inviting me to this session. In fact, when Namita first approached me to talk on this subject, well, both Namita and Shraddhanjali are my course mates from Banivihar in 1987 batch of the applied economics. So I wondered why she wanted me to speak on this subject. And I was also wondering that what would exactly be the expectations from me on this occasion when, of course, the COVID-19 issues are well known to everybody. But when I discussed it with her, I realized that there are intricacies which we have tackled or we have faced as government officials who handled or who are involved in the process of tackling the pandemic in our own way. During the pandemic, I was posted in the Ministry of Defense. I was the Joint Secretary and Additional FA, and that time the secretary had nominated me to be the nodal officer for the COVID cell in MOD Finance, that is the Ministry of Defense Finance, and we had the opportunity to have a look at a gamut of issues which confronted us in tackling various aspects of the pandemic, which are generic also. It's an interesting part that the public finance management issues are actually generic across the world, and many of the government would have faced similar issues that we have faced. Yes, we faced it in various phases. Maybe somebody faced it earlier, we faced it later, somebody faced it after us. So how did we actually go about it? What I would do, my presentation I will now upload. I have structured it in a way that what are the public finance management issues that actually confront us during a pandemic. I will give you the structural issues, and then I will also tell you as to how and what was the Indian specific issues that Indian specific issues that had come up in the process that we handled it at that point of time. Of course, my my intervention will be limited to the role that I played as part of the Defense Ministry Finance Division. So you can have a look at this, and then we can stop me and ask me any question you want to raise in the middle, or we can take the questions at the end of the session. See, please look at the first slide. I have put as the PFM system. The PFM is Public Finance Management System. What is the broad objective when we are confronted with a pandemic? First, of course, is supporting the fiscal objective of the government. We first wonder when we are confronted with a pandemic and the effective measures to be taken for it. What is the fiscal objective of the government? What are the parameters on which we have designed our budgeting system, on the parameters on which we intend to distribute the funds to various government agencies, various ministries in the department, and also what will be our future course of action to tackle the pandemic. Should I upload this presentation from here, Namita? Okay. Second one is finding the offsetting savings for increased COVID-19 related spending. This is a very interesting and important point for all of us. The moment one knows that there is a pandemic, the first pressure that comes is on the health sector, health infrastructure. You need temporary hospitals to be set up. You need medication. You need to augment the mobile medical facility. And there are various issues that needs to be tackled. The first question that as administrator we ask ourselves, okay, there is a requirement, emergent requirement of funds to tackle this crisis. Where from I will get these funds? As economic students, all of us know, and you know it also, that once the budget is given to the various ministries in Government of India, the budget gets a revision at the revised estimate stage, and then maybe during supplementary stage, and later on at the time of in the month of March, what we call and know as modified appropriation. So how are we? Please go back to the previous slide. Please go back to the previous slide. Yeah, that slide only. Yeah. So how does one handle that? Where from you get the resources to fund these kind of activities. The first thing that one would like to see, that is there any savings that is available to us in any of the budget heads where we have already budgeted, but we may not be able to spend, or we do not think that we'll be spending it in the near future. That is the one main important area where you can easily find immediate funding, and there is a methodology by which a reappropriation can take place from one budget head to another budget head, and that budget head could be the health budget head or health related expenditure budget heads. In Defense Ministry, we had to set up a lot of camps for the incoming people who are coming from abroad, airlifted and set up at various locations like Jodhpur and all. We also had to augment our own medical facilities. You must have seen in the news that many temporary and supplementary medical facilities are being set up to take care of the increase in the load factor of the hospitals, including oxygen support systems, etc., etc. So all those aspects needs funding, and those funding can only immediately be achieved when you look at some savings in some budget heads or some expenditure which can be deferred. So that is where the second part of the PFM system comes, a budgetary aspect, management aspect. Budget, I would put it this way, the budgetary management aspect of the pandemic and the budgeting system. Whatever ministry has whatever budget, that ministry will be looking at its own internal budget, because that ministry is empowered to reappropriate between various heads, and then the finance ministry will also approve it at a point of time. Then third one is preparing and delivering fiscal response packages to support economic activity. This is a mid-term approach, I would say. You have seen the Atmanirbhar package coming up by the government, and other packages also for health packages coming over state governments and other establishments. This is a mid-term package which is essential and has to be designed at that point of time. It needs a lot of thinking, and it needs also to understand that how this packaging can be done so that it meets the requirements of the additional funding for the pandemic. This is the three basic broad objectives on which a pandemic can be looked at. And let me tell you, these are the three basic objectives, broad objectives, which each government across the country looks at when we are confronted with a pandemic. Next slide, please. Now, what are the fiscal policy needs? That is what is very important. We have to match the broad objective of the fiscal management system with the fiscal policy needs. I'll just read out one of the important aspects. First is supporting the delivery of emergent health services. We just discussed it in the last slide to some extent, that when the emergency health services is to be given, then how to support it. The support comes in form of budgeting, support comes in terms of relaxation of certain rules and regulations, support comes in terms of delegation of financial power, support also comes in terms of empowering certain authorities to spend when they did not have that power earlier, but during the emergency, they should be able to handle those powers. Second one is ensuring the ongoing delivery of essential public services. Now, do you need to give the delivery of emergency health services at the cost of essential services which are earlier existing? Certainly not. Certainly not. So those services will also have to be maintained. So two factors come into picture. One is the essential services when the pandemic was not there has to be maintained, and when the pandemic is there, some services have to be augmented and some new services have to be introduced. Now, third, implementing new fiscal measures, including various support mechanisms to assist business and people experiencing economic hardship. Those are the packages which we talked about. What are the kind of packages that can be proposed so that the new fiscal measures can help the business and the people experiencing economic hardship? Because pandemic is a time when many people experience less income generation, and it can have a cascading effect over a period of time. The third is the ensuring of smooth public finance management service despite absence of staff across government. This is a big challenge. As the pandemic grows, the lockdown was there, many offices were closed, And many of the offices were also attending the staff. Our staff was attending essential services we were giving in staggered timings or with a reduced staff base. Like you have seen the government, which it says that staff will be only 30% or staff will be only 15%, and staff will come up to a particular level 100% or 50%, and up to a particular level it will be 30% or 15%. Now the question is, how do you manage your daily activities with the staff which is staggered or which is not available in full strength, which is normally available to us? Now that is a very big challenge in government, and therefore we have to plan it in such a way that the essential work that we conduct during this period doesn't get hampered due to lack of absence of staff across the government. Of course, we are today talking on a VC. 10 years back, I would not have really thought of addressing you people from a distance on a video conferencing. Yes, working from home is one concept which helped in a large way to keep the process going and keep the approval systems running. Next slide, please. Now I come to one of the major topics which attracts a lot of attention during the pandemic. First, that is called budget management. The moment we say that there is an emergency, we need to fund it, how to fund it, immediately everybody asks one question: kahan se paisa aayega? Who is going to give us that money? And how is that money going to be delivered to us? Now, one aspect, of course, everybody knows is contingency appropriations. Those are the funds that are earmarked immediately for the health sector by government to meet the budget requirements that is required there. Then emergency spending provisions, emergency procurement provisions are promulgated so that the existing procurement norms are relaxed. Like, as all of us know, you are the student of economics, so you know it also, that every government procurement or every procurement follows a set of principle, financial principle. And in our case, it is enshrined in a book called General Financial Rules. The General Financial Rules actually lays down the basic government procedures in which all procurements has to be done. Now, if one has to follow those rules, can we make an emergency procurement? I'll give you an example. Like, I need a ventilator. I don't need one ventilator. I need 200 ventilators. Now, if I try to buy these ventilators during a normal time, I will possibly buy these ventilators by doing a tendering. Now, in that tendering, somebody will come, he will be given 3 weeks time, he will quote, then we will open the tender, then we will arrive at some lowest vendor, then talk to him, find out that he is suitable, and then give him the order, then we'll ask him to supply within 6 months or 8 months. Now, do you have the time at the pandemic time for this kind of an exercise? If you do not have that time, then how will you get this procurement on an emergency basis? One question it raises here: how much time I have to get the ventilators on board? Now somebody will say, sir, I need within 2 weeks, I need 100 ventilators. Within 1 week, I need 50 ventilators. Within maybe sometime we need 30 ventilators or 300 ventilators. Now, question is this ventilator available in the market? Even if we need them, who is producing them? There comes one area, that is augmenting production of the essential items. That is where the emergency spending provisions, the general financial regulations, or any other procurement procedure that one follows needs some relaxation. And also at the simultaneous step, you have to augment. You have to augment the production level. Now, as we know, our own organizations in government had stepped forward, like we have Defense Research Development Organization, who came out with producing masks, with sanitizers, with ventilators. They set up hospitals also, and that led to an augmentation of the production system, and that could be one of the emergency spending provisions can be augmented and also implemented. Now the third point, expenditure reprioritization through reallocations. We discussed it in the first slide very mildly, that you need to look at your savings. Now, if I do not, supposing I have allocated, let us say, 100 crores rupees for sports and adventure. But during the pandemic, I will not be able to carry out any kinds of sports and adventures. So now if I do not reallocate these funds to another head, maybe a health head, where a health augmentation, infrastructure augmentation is required, that money will be sitting there all the time. And we may just not be able to spend it at the end of the year because there will be nobody traveling anywhere for any sports activity and neither any adventure activity. So we have to very carefully look at these budget heads and find out where these savings are available and then reprioritize our procurement and spending and reallocation of budget. This is a major exercise. Although the line, one bullet point here looks very small to all of us, this is a major exercise. And this exercise has to be very carefully planned because it may so not happen that in our enthusiasm to allocate funds to one particular area, we end up reallocating funds from an area where possibly there will be cases where for every ministry, defense of course is completely different, where operational requirements are there from defense point of view. In other ministries also, there will be essential areas from where no allocation can be reallocated. But a very systematic analysis has to be carried out to find out where all these kind of allocations will not be spent or cannot be spent immediately. And those allocations has to be reallocated. This is one area where the public finance management in budget management plays a very major role. And for all of us who work during that period, we were day and night, we are looking at these areas as to where from that reallocation can come so that we can push it to setting up some extra beds somewhere or buy some more ventilators or prepare PPE kits, something like that. Now, supplementary budget estimates, it's a simple method. Supplementary budget estimates, every ministry will propose, of course, that whatever extra money they need for the pandemic, and the government considers them. This is not a major area, but then an estimate has to be prepared and very carefully prepared so that it doesn't put pressure on the budgetary system of the government of India, and therefore it has to be given. External aids and grants is beyond the budgetary management system, but we saw during the second wave that many of the other governments across the world came forward to extend their helping hand and especially setting up oxygen plants and other things and vaccination also. And we can take help from there wherever we get and make use of them. Next slide, please. Now, question is, giving the budget is one aspect of it. All of us get the budget to spend. Now, the question is how to make it available to the person who spends it. Because as you know, the government system is a hierarchical system. Like A gets a top institute, top management gets the budget, then they pass on to their subordinate offices, they pass on to their subordinate offices. Like that, there's a percolation effect. The budget goes down, and then at various levels it gets spent. Now the question is, how do you maintain the liquidity? Now question is, where many times we see that if somebody comes and says ki sir wo ventilator nahi pahuncha, and then a static response to this would be humne to budget de di, we have given the budget. No, you have given the budget, but it has not reached the level at which it is being spent. That's a very critical question. So you have to really map it 360 degree. You not only give the budget allocation, after that what happens has to be also monitored. This is a very critical aspect of public finance management in liquidity. You have to maintain the liquidity. Where is the cash? And how is it going to be spent? That is the important aspect of it. So what we used to do, we used to check it. Like we gave a budget allocation to X, X gave the budget allocation to Y, Y gave the budget allocation to Z. So we will check it with all X, Y, Z to find out, did you get the budget? Yes. Did you communicate it to your next level? Yes. Did you get communicated to the next level? Yes. Having got the budget there, have you now started an action plan to procure these items within the time frame that you are supposed to procure it? Yes. Then what are the possibilities or difficulties that you expect to get when you buy this item? Can we resolve it for you? We had a nodal committee. I was heading that committee in defense finance, and people used to phone us every 1 hour, 2 hours, hundreds of calls will come asking for advice on procurement management, liquidity management, And also many times the budget and management. If they have the budget, but they don't know how to go about it. So this is where the second part comes. Suitable adjustment. Then one aspect, of course, is make suitable arrangement in the borrowing programs. It's a bigger scheme. How to borrow money from market, from abroad, from somewhere. It is a bigger scheme. It immediately do not affect you. Over a period of time, it affects you. But yes, over a period of time, one needs to develop a policy for that. Then recalibrate the cash buffer level. I just explained it to you. We need to know how much, where is the pressure? Which budget center has the pressure? How much cash balance he should have. If he has less cash balance, then how much cash balance he should get. I'll give you an example. For example, there is one, let us say one organization somewhere sitting in Jaipur or Jodhpur. Now question is, we have given him a cash ceiling limit of 5 lakh rupees. Now he suddenly finds that he has to set up 2 hospitals somewhere in the near vicinity, and for that he needs, his cash spending level has gone up to 10 lakhs or 15 lakhs in a day. Then what does he do? We have to identify those key particular areas and authorize them budget spending cash limits immediately. If we don't do it, then the budgetary allocation, the exercise that we did earlier by relocating budgetary savings from some other head or checking with them that they have got the budgetary allocation fails. Then ultimate analysis, what we need the ventilators or the mask or the PPE kits or the medicine there. We haven't got it. So this is one area on which we have to focus. Then explore alternative financing sources. That of course is a different issue, where how do you fund this? Sometimes many private organizations come forward, sometimes many NGOs come forward, sometimes some other organizations come forward. There are various funds from which it can be augmented. So those are also one has to keep in mind and see how does one look at those funds if the necessity arises. Most important, put in a place of mechanism to prioritize payments. Now what happens when we place an order and we have got the item? Now the item has, the person, the vendor or the organization who has supplied it to us needs the payment to be done so that he starts the next batch of procurement. Now, how do you pay in these circumstances? Because normally in a government setup, what happens? Our concept is fast in, fast out. If I've got a bill first, I will say it A1, I'll first make a bill for A1. I cannot go to A2 until I make the pay for A1. No, can I jump the queue? That is the question. There is an administrative decision to be taken, and it's a public finance management decision. I look at it that. Now we have to reprioritize the payments. We have to look at a separate queue for pandemic payments, and those payments will be fast track, so that it is in a way to augment the confidence of the person who is supplying us also during that period. Because in a pandemic period, many suppliers will not be able to supply because of their own depletion in the staff level and production level. So to keep his confidence level that yes, the payment will come the moment I supply, this is an arrangement one has to also look at. International financial institutions financial support, it's a long-term and a medium-term framework. It's a policy, it's a broad framework policy matter. It will affect us in the long term, not in the short term during a pandemic. Next one, please. Now, timely fund disbursement. I was just discussing it with you. Now, adopt a risk-based approach to controls. This I have particularly put to sensitize you people because you are economic students, and in the current scenario, we have a lot of focus on oversight mechanisms. When we say oversight mechanism, it's a jargon, and many people feel what is the oversight mechanism. To put it very simply, we have two broad oversight mechanisms. One is a parliamentary control over budget. That's the oversight mechanism. And the second one is audit. We all know about C&AG of India. And I also belong to one department which does internal audit for the defense forces. So audit is one area which also acts as a oversight mechanism and a control mechanism. It's an internal control mechanism. Now, when I say internal control mechanism, what do you understand? Internal control is, I'll give an example from home. It will be very easy. Supposing I take 100 rupees and buy some vegetables. When I come back, I make a small chitta. I see that okay, I bought this vegetable for 5 rupees, I bought that vegetable for 10 rupees, I bought this vegetable for 20 rupees, total 100 rupees. If it doesn't match, then I wonder, okay, I bought these things, where is the rest balance 10 rupees gone? Now, in government, we have two sets of such audit. One is called pre-audit, one is called post-audit. The pre-audit is one where an item has to be first audited and then payment will be released. One item which is very critical, like this pandemic procurements for medical equipments, etc., should it invariably going through a pre-audit process by elongating the process and delaying the payment aspects, or it can be post-audited? You see, the argument can be both ways. Somebody will say, no, let it be post-audited. There is no point in making a pre-audit because we do not know. If we make the pre-audit, possibly there will be a delay. Now it can work both ways. That is where you have to make a risk approach. Risk is where we have to make an assessment. Supposing I dispense with the pre-audit here, then what happens? Will I end up making a payment which is fraudulent payment? There is a possibility many times. Let me tell you, there's a possibility that during such times you may have a person trying to supply you items which may not have that much of credibility which we expect. Now then what happens? Can we dispense with this kind of a situation? Yes, that risk-based approach, control mechanism approach has to be adopted. We have to identify, okay, out of 10 payments that I have to make today, 5 payments I will make pre-audit because I do not know the credential of the vendor, or we do not want to dilute the mechanics. But yes, there are government agencies who are also supplying us items. There we do not need to make pre-audit because they are after all government organizations and they already have a credibility aspect with them. So we just make a payment and we'll post audit. And if there is a fault coming out in the post audit, we'll point it out to them. That can be done. And that is also one area in which one can check the elongation of the process. That is to reduce the time span and make a timely fund disbursement. The second one is greater delegation of financial authority. So this is a very interesting topic. What happens in government? We have hierarchies. Everywhere there is a hierarchy that way. If, supposing X makes is the authority who approves a payment. And if we go through that chain, we know that it will be a file which will move and will take around 30 days or 20 days or 11 days or 9 days to make that payment. But the point is, can I authorize the man on ground who is buying these equipments to directly make the payment? If he makes that payment, then he is authorized. Let us say they need approval from Delhi, but somebody is located in Andaman Nicobar, or somebody is located in Kerala, or somebody is located in J&K, and he needs to make the payment. If he tries to move those files, even nearest to Delhi also have to move the files and get the approval, it takes some time. Can I authorize him to make that payment? Yes, that delegation can be given during these periods. Interestingly, Ministry of Finance delegated a lot of powers to the other ministries during the pandemic, authorizing us to do a lot of reappropriation of funds, payment authorities to be issued, so that nobody needs to go to finance ministry and then get into some gap of time, because there will be rush at one point of time if there is a centralization of delegations. So decentralized delegation is one area in which one needs to look at. Third one, of course, is all aware. Everybody is having, I think, Google Pay, Paytm, and all there. It is all transfer, electronic transfer of payment. It helps us in two things. First is that when you make a check payment, it may so happen that there is a mistake in the check. It may bounce, or it may go to some other, it may lost in transit. And during the pandemic, who is going to send a check and where is the manpower to send the check in time? There could be a possibility of a delay. This RTGS system or electronic payment system is one of the best systems where you can expedite payment settlement and you know that he has received the payment within minutes, and we update our records. This is one area which also fund disbursement part looks at. Then the beneficiary authentication and fraud prevention. This electronic payment itself takes care of it. The beneficiary. Please go back to the slide. Please go back to the slide. Excuse me. Yeah, please. Can you go back to that slide? Yeah. Thank you. Now cash advances to make available resources to service delivery units promptly. We have discussed this, increasing the cash ceiling levels at various locations so that the cash advances they can draw the cash advances and make payments depending on the kind of procurement they are making. That is also to to expedite the payment, but there is a word of caution. When you make a payment from a local source like that, one has to keep track of the authenticity of the payments to be made, because generally during pandemics and during emergency procurements, sometimes we have experienced situation where possibly we may make a payment or two which may not be good. Next. Now, what could be the emergency response measures? Go back to the previous slide, please. Yeah, go back to the previous slide.
Okay. Set number 8.
Yeah, please. After fund disbursement.
Okay. Emergency.
Yeah.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it visible?
Yeah, but it's not. It's visible in small.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Now visible.
Yeah, it is visible. Thank you so much. See what happens. The emergency response measure is a backup measure. It's a measure to help us get a feedback even during that period, to understand that the things that are being done is also correctly being done, and what could be the possibility of a mid-course correction or a immediate correction also measure also that can be adopted. First thing is to set up a mechanism by which we get an MIS, that is Management Information System, that will help us to understand that yes, these steps are correct, these steps are correct, these steps are correct, and therefore how to correct them if there is a requirement to do it. The second is to understand from this data itself that okay, we are getting over possibly the immediate impact, but what will be the sustainability part of it over a medium term and long term. And especially in a crisis like COVID-19, where one gets foxed by first wave, second wave, and third wave, then one needs to make a futuristic model so that one understands that okay, if I have come out of first wave, but I can anticipate a second wave. If I have come out of second wave, maybe I will anticipate a third wave. Then what kind of infrastructure, what kind of a procurement process will be there? You see what happens, the general tendency is like, okay, first wave had come, we have done this much, well, now let us relax for some time. That is where things can go very. Therefore, it's a continuous pressure and it's a continuous cycle. So one has to tackle it from that point of time through management information system. So now response measures have to be evaluated from time to time to understand their efficacy, and then how to continue them with more efficacy. That is the main point. And at the same time, you have to understand that the public finance budgeting system has to be sustained to meet these requirements, but one has to know where to stop it. Otherwise, what will happen? These systems will continue and those relaxations will continue even when after the pandemic is over. and possibly we will end up buying something which we do not need. And after a year or two, then audit will point out that you are having so much of machines lying there but without any use. So that is also a prevention. It's a very important part of the entire exercise, because you see the entire public finance management of government is based on public accountability, and that is one important area which needs to be looked at. Next slide. Now, question is, once we start giving the budget and we start spending it, you see already there is a budget allocation given to various organizations. Now, how does one know that which money is being spent only for the purpose of COVID? Like, for example, I'll give an example. I have a hospital. Now, the hospital is already buying medicines and procuring various items. Now, it gets some more funds for COVID-19. Now, if I want to know that they have got funds on COVID-19 and how have they spent it over a period of time, how do I know it? How do I identify that budget to know that there is no mix-up between the normal budget for that hospital and the budget for the COVID-19? There are methods of doing it. We do it by establishing a dedicated budget line. In government, we have something called a category code. And that category code, like 01, 02, 03, 05, 07, there are various category codes to identify different types of expenditure. So what we put that category code before the budget line. And we, from that booking of data, which comes through the financial compilations, we can understand that, okay, this is a COVID expenditure, this is not a COVID expenditure, this is a COVID expenditure, this is not a COVID expenditure. And then we look at that MIS. Otherwise, our decision making may go vary. And second is that, which I explained to you, that you have to create a loop by which all the information is coming to you, and you are able to analyze it and take a decision on it. Third point, which is most important, the last point I have said, fiscal risk exposure from measures taken to combat the crisis. Anything? Anything?
No, it's all right.
Okay. And ensure that these mechanisms are in place to control and monitor the fiscal risk expense. I mean, how to fiscal risk exposure from measures to combat the crisis, one needs to know. One needs to know this through analytical studies of the measures taken to combat the crisis. And those are that is why we use sometimes what we call a think tank also. And an agency which also runs its checks from various sources and tells us like what are the points from which we can understand that what is the efficacy of our policy measures. So these are the checks and balances that have to be put in place when a public finance management policy system is deployed during these emergencies. Next. Well, business continuity. It's an important area. We all understand it. I don't have to explain this slide actually. You establish a crisis management team. Of course, every organization would have established a crisis management there to understand that what is the action plan to be drawn up. In case this happens, what will be action plan to be drawn up if something else happens. Plan A, plan B, and plan C. Like we had our own team, which I was heading. So we knew, okay, if the budget line have difficulty, then we'll look at the next budget line. Or if this funding is not working, organization is not able to procure, there will be another organization who will procure and supply to that organization. So that is one. Then most important thing which we face during this thing is documentation. Okay, all the procurements are being done on emergency, or all the activities are being on emergency mode, but then there will be a time when all these activities will be reviewed and all these decisions will be looked back. So we have to maintain the documentation, and that documentation to be maintained, but with the current level of staff available, we may not be able to organize the documentation in a way, the way we would have done in a normal time. So we'll have to prioritize and see how this documentation has to be prepared. Another thing is explaining people how to go about it. Okay, let us say we get 10 people from some place, we have to put them into a medical camp. Now, what will they do from time to time? It's very difficult to explain to them every time they arrive, because every time there will be a new person, or maybe the duty of the person who is doing there has changed. So you'll have to make a flow chart and put it somewhere so people know, understand that these are the steps they will go through from time to time. You see, you must be wondering that these are all administrative methods. How does it affect the public finance management system? Let me be very frank with you. These are the steps which actually tell us on ground that whatever policy measures have been formulated and are being implemented are working. That is the key thing in this. So all these small steps that we take to ensure its efficient implementation ultimately adds up to the overall result. Now, of course, the last point, we know that any possible supply chain disruption, yes, there will be supply chain disruptions because many of the industries would be closed, many of the industries would not be producing. Then you want something, then it is not possible to be produced. You produced something, you cannot dispatch it. You have dispatched it, it is not reaching the destination. So all these things have to be anticipated and then built into the system so that whatever is required during the pandemic, the action plan that we have devised comes through. Okay, next. Additional policy flexibilities, yes, that of course is a macro level policy making, and this is for example, PFM managers should also prepare for the need of fiscal measures to support economic activity. We said that Atmanirbhar Bharat and all those packages, announced by the government are the correct steps in these directions, and policy flexibility to respond quickly. Now, policy flexibility is one area which I explained some time back was delegation of financial powers or delegation of powers. You give the delegation to a lower functionary, empower him to take the decision on your behalf and inform you at a later stage that he has taken this decision. If by chance you think that the decision is not correct or has been taken in a deviant manner, then you can correct it at that stage. You have to keep a scope of a concurrent review so that those decisions can be reviewed from time to time. Okay, next please. Now the last slide, this is the last slide I think before I close, it's government accountability. You see, all public finance management activities are bound by one single thread that is called public accountability. And in government, you see, every active action that we do, we always say that it is in public interest. It's in public interest. So how do we establish the public accountability? In government, the structure is very simple. That's why, it's part of the many countries' democratic setups where we have an auditing authority. C&AG is the auditing authority. They will audit from time to time and conduct various performance audit, regulatory audit, or for that matter, thematic audits they conduct, and they tell us what went wrong and what could have been done. And that is where we establish the public accountability part of the entire PFMS exercise that takes place. So the government accountability framework has to be part of the PFMS. It is in fact part of the PFMS. It has to be part of the PFMS. And interestingly, this information which comes in audit report is placed before the parliament, and the parliament also places it in the public domain. So this information is disseminated to the public. So whatever action takes place during the COVID-19 pandemic that we have done, like for example, we have relaxed procurement regulations, we have relaxed delegation of financial powers, we have procured items out of the way, not following the normal procurement procedures. We have procured maybe some item at a higher cost than it was not supposed to be, but we had to purchase it because it was required for healthcare facility at that point of time. All those aspects are then put into the scrutiny through the audit mechanism that we are having, and then establishes the government accountability part of it. So basically, to sum up, a public finance management system for a pandemic like COVID-19 will basically comprise of government policy framework, both short-term, medium-term, long-term, then budgetary management, liquidity management, then disbursement and procurement management, and continuation of business activities during that period, both government and private, and cater for futuristic trends in that public finance management, and last but not the least, certainly the government accountability part. I close my presentation here. If any questions are there.
Thank you very much. Now, the students and the participants, viewers, they are requested to ask any question if they have. Am I audible to all of you?
Good evening, sir. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, yes, please.
Sir, my question is how the public financial management system can play an important role in strengthening our health infrastructure.
Uh, Good question. You see, we witnessed it during the pandemic. The public finance management system should be flexible to augment itself to a level where the health infrastructure can be augmented, like we did it during the pandemic. And most important, the public finance management system should also look at a dynamic policy making system where you can enhance the budgetary allocation, you can reallocate the budget, then relaxation of rules for procurement agencies, and basically a very dynamic system of public finance management for policymakers. You can tackle this kind of pandemics very easily. The only thing is that one has to be alert, and what we experienced is despite every mechanism available, one can still fail if one is not looking at the you know future prospects or making an futuristic analysis to keep various options available so that one can respond to it when it comes to it. We thought that this concept of plan A, B, C helped us quite a bit there because we could respond to one or the other options when it came to it.
One more question I have, sir. Sir, during the second wave, we have seen that there was a serious shortage of oxygen in the capital and other states, where Odisha plays a major role in providing oxygen to those states. Sir, can we blame our public financial management system for that? क्या ये better हो सकता था, sir?
You see, public finance management system, yeah, it was geared up during that period for generation of more oxygen from various sources. So the system was already in place, and it was definitely augmented to give the oxygen that was required during that period.
Thank you.
Good evening, sir. Sir, I have a question. What steps were taken for the easy procurement of medical equipment during this pandemic?
There are many steps taken by individuals, state governments, ministries on their own, but the finance ministry issued guidelines relaxing provisions for procurement, government procurements, and authorized, procurement by not following the let down procedures through that GEM portal and that the government e-market through tendering and all. And there were also methodologies adopted by giving allowing officers in charge to who are making these procurements to make on spot payment or cash payment wherever feasible, and also to many times waive off the honest money deposits, etc., if they felt authentic, and they can that kind of expertise he has, so that this relaxation can be provided to them. In short, the procurement meant by the competent financial authorities, they were empowered actually at field level to take a call on this. This is a very major step in expediting the procurements for the health infrastructure.
Thank you, sir.
Sir,
Yes.
my Mr. Kiran Barasnai. Hello, sir.
Yes, please.
Sir, my question is that is there any causal relationship between public health expenditure and economic growth, whether it is bidirectional or unidirectional?
You see, you cannot establish a causal relationship between a policy framework and a growth rate. But yes, if you ask me as an economist, I'm not anymore. I was student of economics almost 30 years back, but I still keep touch with my subject. We can develop a model to establish a causal relationship between a public finance management policy and the economic growth, provided we have defined the growth parameters.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Anybody with any? No question for us. Namita? Perhaps.
Sir.
Perhaps no.
Yes, sir.
Is there any question?
If you don't have any question, we'll go for the next program. Okay.
Go for the next program.
Yes, sir. Now it's time to say thanks to our revered chief guest. By that time, I want to present a small memento virtually on behalf of Maharshi College of Natural Law and on behalf of Department of Economics. So, it's a small memento for our guest to speak of. May I request our head of the department, Dr. Vivekananda Das, to present this small memento virtually. Sir. Vivek sir. Vivek sir. Vivek sir, please present virtually.
Sir, on behalf of my department, I am presenting to you virtually, of course.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay.
We
Okay.
are very glad to get as the issues person. Please accept this.
Okay, sir. And I want to present this certificate of participation to 2 persons, those who have joined over here for the first time. They are Mr. Sambit. I request our chief guest to hand over this certificate to Mr. Sachidananda Pradhan, second year economics honors Maharshi College student.
Okay, thank you, Namita. Please accept Sachidanand the certificate virtually.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay. Another person, Sambit. Sambit also joined first. Mr. Sambit Kumar, and who has also participated in the question answer session. May I request our guest, Mr. Das, to present this certificate to Sambit, please.
Sambit, kindly accept the virtual certificate.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Sambit. Thank you, sir. Now it's time to say goodbye to our chief speaker of this afternoon. May I request Professor Jugal Kumar Pradhan, Jugal Kishore Pradhan, head of the department in English, sir, kindly propose a vote of thanks on behalf of Maharshi College and on behalf of the Department of Economics. Sir, over to Jugal, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, kindly unmute your, sir, kindly unmute your sound, please. Yes, no. मैडम मोबाइल रे जो स्पीकर चित्र हेची स्पीकर चित्रटा को चिपी दियंतु स्पीकर चित्र हेइनी मैडम हेइनी तार पाखटा को करंतु ता पाखटा को आपण वीडियो टा को करछंती ऑडियो टा करंतु यस यस मैडम वीडियो टा हां वीडियो टा ऑन कर दियन सर हैला सुना होची सर सुना जाउची
ओके
ओके सर सर वीडियो ऑन कर दियंतु हाँ मैडम वीडियो ऑन हैला
Esteemed principal of this August rendering, the chairman of this webinar, and our respected head of the department, Dr. Vivekananda sir, and the convener of this webinar, Dr. Namita Patnaik madam, and all the departmental colleagues, Shraddhanjali madam, and others, and my teacher friends, and the viewers from the state and across the state and out of the state, and my dear and beloved students. I have immense pleasure to share vote of thanks in this rare occasion. Actually, our honorable speaker is very loud, has given a laudable speech, very wonderful, wonderful speech on the various aspects of the physical management during the pandemic period. So our students certainly be immensely benefited out of his teaching through the web. they will be inspired, they will prepare themselves for the future time. I do express my deep sense of gratitude and indebtedness on behalf of the Department of Economics and my college, Mercy College of Natural Law, for giving this wonderful speech for the students and for this webinar. Sir, your contribution shall be ever remembered, and we highly admire your illustration and your elucidation makes the students clear about many aspects of the budgeting system and so on. I do express my deep sense of gratitude and thankfulness to Dr. Namita Patnaik, Madam, to arrange such a rare subject, that is need-based, intensive one for the students, because they are the future of our nation. The key to future lies in their hand. So it is a practically a suitable subject that has been chosen for the purpose. I do express my thankfulness to our head of the department, Economics, Dr. Vivekananda Das, sir, for giving his keynote address and to open the webinar. I do express my thanks. I said thanks to all of the participants, my teacher friends of the college, and the participants from Jharkhand, West Bengal, and Telangana and other states to have participated in this occasion. I do express once again the students who are the real key of this webinar for their participation, questioning, and this certainly will refresh our memory and will go a long way away, and will open the vast vista of this chapter. Thank you once again to all of you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I'm really grateful to you. In this auspicious day, you make yourself available and to extend a heartfelt thanks to our guests and all the participants. And finally, I thank to Lord Jagannath and also Rista for giving me an opportunity to do this program uninterruptedly. Although there are some few problems, it sometimes happens. So I'm really grateful to all of you. Once again, I'm thankful to my HOD for giving me an opportunity for convening this seminar on web. And I'm also thankful to my friend and the good administrator of Government of India, Mr. Anugrah Narayan Das, for imparting such a beautiful session. I rather can say it's a great session for me also. So thank you very much. Once again, I'm going to stop the recording. Then we'll have some discussion formally.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, Namita. And hopefully we'll meet again. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Very good session. We are actually